All right, so for this last example, I want you guys to try working through this one on your own or work together on it. Notice your domain. You're going to be working in radians, so you may have to reset your calculator mode. And notice that this equation has more than one trig function in it. The previous example, everything was in terms of one trig function, tangent. This equation is in terms of both sine and cotangent. So I'm going to give you a little hint to get you started. When in doubt, when you guys are kind of at a loss of what to do, when in doubt, zero it out, which means set your equation equal to 0 and see if you can factor. All right, so I'm going to ask the sub to pause the video right now and give you guys about 5 to 7 minutes here to kind of work through it on your own. And then once you guys have had a little bit of time, we'll come back and take a look at it. Okay, so hopefully you guys did something like this. You set it equal to 0 by subtracting the 2 sine x. Here's where we can use zero product property. There's a sine x that's in common. This is not quadratic form, but there is a greatest common factor of sine x that we can factor out. And then since our equation is equal to 0, we can take each factor and set up two little mini equations. Sine of x is equal to 0 and cotangent of x minus 2 is equal to 0. Working over here on the left, when I isolate x, I'm going to be taking the sine inverse of 0. And I know that as I work my way around the unit circle, there are a couple of positions. This is going to be a quadrantal position. There are a couple of positions where the sine of an angle is a ratio of 0, and that's at 0 and pi. When I'm working over here with this equation on the right, the first thing I want to do is isolate my cotangent x, and then I'm going to take the cotangent inverse of both sides, and because I don't like working with a cotangent, I'm going to change it back to tangent inverse of 1/2, use the reciprocals of both. I know that because I'm working with a positive ratio, I'm going to be getting my angles from quadrants 1 and 3. And we had solved this one previously in degrees, but when we have our calculator set in radians, we get radians of 0.46 from quadrant 1. And if I were to add that to pi, I would get 3.60. Now, here's where things get a little tricky. If we go back up and look at our original equation, remember we had a cotangent function in our original equation. And if you remember the graph of cotangent, cotangent has asymptotes at certain locations. The graph looks something like this, doesn't it? Let me start that over. That was really bad. Sorry, guys. Here's our vertical asymptotes, and the graph does something like this. There we go. And remember, our asymptotes are at 0, pi, negative pi. So these solutions that we got from our mini equation for the sine of x is generating extraneous solutions. I want to throw those out of my solution set. My only good solutions then are the radians of 0.46 and 3.60. So, how'd you do? All right, last thing I want to leave you with, guys, are some tips for solving trig equations.